Namaste, viewers from all over the world. Welcome to this Global Festival of Oneness to celebrate the birth and the works of Jagadguru Bhagavadpada Adi Shankaracharya. I will start with a small prayer and thereafter I will introduce you today's honorable speaker. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru-Parampara. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. King Jyotistava Bhanumana Anime Ratrau Pradipadikam Syadevam Ravideepa Darshana Vidho King Jyotirakhyahime Chakshustasya Nimilanadi Samaye Kindirdiyo Darshane Kintatrahamato Bhavan Paramakam Jyotistadasmi Prabhu Na Nirodhor Na Chotpattir Na Baddho Na Chasadakaha Na Mumukshur Na Mai Mukta Ityesha Paramarthaka Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Today we are blessed to have the talk from Swamini Paraprajnananda Saraswati ji on the subject of Atman or Brahman as self has four quarters, a perspective from Mandukya Upanishad. Subject is a little complex, but it is going to be very interesting. Swamini Paraprajnananda ji Saraswati is an erudite sannyasin, well versed with the knowledge of scriptures, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, and the other Vedic texts. Swamini ji is a student of revered Swami Viditatmananda ji, Viditatmananda Saraswati ji, president of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, Salzburg, Pennsylvania, USA. Swami Viditatmananda Saraswati ji is also the founder of Acharya Adhyatma Vidya Mandir, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, India. And Adhyatma Vidya Mandir is an institute of learning and disseminating the knowledge of Vedanta. Swamini Paraprajnananda ji is resident sannyasin of Adhyatma Vidya Mandir, Ahmedabad. Swamini Paraprajnananda ji Saraswati has been teaching Vedanta for past 20 years in Ahmedabad and different cities of Gujarat. In 2016, Swamini ji conducted talks on Vedanta in different cities of USA, Salzburg, New Jersey, Dallas. Swamini ji abides in the knowledge of the self and is also expert in imparting this knowledge to others. The depth of Swamini ji's wisdom and her art of teaching, which is at once profound and lucid, make her an expert teacher from whom the learning is a joy. Swamini ji's experience as a professor of English in past facilitates her to adeptly handle the subject at hand and communicate it to the audience. Besides being a gifted teacher, Swamini ji is also a very simple, loving, and compassionate person. Swamini ji has agreed to take a few questions after the talk. Viewers are kindly requested to type the questions in the question box. Over to you, Swamini ji. Sashtanga.
Namaste, everyone.
You can start, Swamini.
Sorry?
You can start the session.
Okay, but I'm not, there is my tablet is not showing anything.
Yes, you won't be able to see any of the audience because it's a webinar.
No, but yeah, that is true. But I'm not able to see my own picture also. Is it necessary? Now, yeah. Now it is fine.
Okay.
Okay. Namaste everyone. We shall start with our own prayer. Om Bhadrang Karne Vishnuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashye Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Stushtvagum Sastanubhihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vruttashavaha Swasti na Pusha Vishvavedaha Swasti nastarksho harishtanemih swasti no brihaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The topic for today's talk is Self as Four Quarters, a perspective from Mandukya Upanishad. Before we get into this topic, let us have a few words about Mandukya Upanishad, because this statement comes from Mandukya Upanishad. Mandukya Upanishad hails from Atharva Veda. It is found in Atharva Veda. And it is one of the shortest of the Upanishads, shortest of all the 10 Upanishads on which Adi Shankaracharya ji chose to write his commentaries. Even though it contains only 12 mantras, but these 12 mantras are potent, profound, and very powerful to communicate, to unfold the teachings about the self. It is no wonder that Muktikopanishad says about this Upanishad, Mandukyam ekam eva alam mumukshunam vimuktaye, which means this Upanishad is enough for the liberation of the aspirants, because it contains everything that seekers need to know about the self, about the reality, about what is the truth and what is apparent. In other words, what is Satya, what is Mithya. So this Upanishad contains everything. And this Upanishad has inspired the Parama Guru of Adi Shankaracharya ji, Sri Gaudapada Acharya ji. He was so inspired by this Upanishad that he wrote Mandukya Karika, which means he composed a Karika, which is a commentary upon commentary in verse form upon this Upanishad. He composed 215 verses on this Upanishad, which itself seems to have become a Shastra for the seekers. So this is the importance of this Upanishad. Now, the topic is the self has four quarters. This statement appears in the second mantra of the Upanishad. But before that, in the very first mantra of this Upanishad, Shruti has covered the entire gamut of reality and has made certain very bold equations. So let us look into that to be able to understand this statement. This statement that the self has four quarters, Atma Chatushpata. This comes in the second mantra in the last portion. But before that, the very first mantra says that Omkara is everything. Let me tell you that this Upanishad has many unique things. One of the thing is that this Upanishad employs Omkara, the one syllable mantra, as a means to expound the teaching of Atma. So the very first mantra says, Om iti etat aksharam idagum sarvam. All this is nothing but Omkara. Omkara is everything. Now here, Omkara stands as an abhidhana, the name, it is the name for Brahman. Brahman in its Saguna as well as Nirguna aspect. So Omkara, Upanishad says Omkara is everything. Whatever is there in the past, present, and whatever is there even beyond time is nothing but Omkara. In short, Omkara is the manifest as well as the unmanifest creation, and also the substratum of the creation. Which means that here Omkara is shown as a very, very appropriate name for Brahman. Having said that Omkara is everything, then in the second mantra, Upanishad goes to say that here it was shown that Omkara is everything. Now, Upanishad shows in the reverse way, says Sarvam hi etad Brahma. Omkara is everything, and then Shruti says everything is Brahman, which means that Omkara is Brahman. See, listen very carefully. The first mantra equated Omkara as everything. And then the second mantra goes on to say that Sarvam hi etat Brahma. All this is nothing but Brahman, which means that everything is Brahman, which automatically establishes that Omkara is Brahman. Having said that, and then Upanishad makes a brilliant stroke. It says, I am Atma Brahma. Having said that everything is Brahman, and then it says, this Brahman, Sarvam I etat Brahma, I am Atma Brahma. This Atma is Brahman. So everything is Brahman, and Brahman is nothing but my Atma. Here comes the Mahavakya. This my Atma is Brahman. Having said this, then it says, then comes the statement which we have taken, which forms the basis of our talk today. Atma soyam Atma chatushpad. We wonder that why should Upanishad use the word Atma for Brahman? Why is it showing that Brahman is nothing but my Atma? Bhashyakara here says that when Upanishad says everything is Brahman, and Brahman is shown as Atma, Tacha Brahma Paroksha Abhihitam Pratyakshatah Visheshena Nirdishati. The word Brahman may sound remote, it may sound paroksha, and therefore Upanishad immediately makes this equation and gives this big statement. I am Atma Brahman. This Atma, which is very immediate, which is closest to me, which is my very self, is nothing but Brahman. At the outset, in this manner, Upanishad shows complete oneness between Brahman and Atma. First, Omkara is everything, that everything is Brahman. So Omkara is Brahman, and Brahman is Atma. And now Shruti analyzes this Atma and shows it as having 4 quarters. So now this Atma, Shruti does all this very deliberately to show that Atma is not confined merely to the boundaries of this upadhi or the body, but it is nothing but Brahman. And Now it goes on to show that Atma has four quarters. Soyam Atma Chatushpat, it has four quarters. Now this statement raises many questions in our mind. Upanishad chooses to present Atma in this manner as having four quarters in this Upanishad. It is unique to this Upanishad. We wonder as to how come Atma, which is indivisible, which is Niravayava, Nishkala, can have four quarters. And what is the meaning of this quarters? So let us understand at the beginning that this is a prakriya. Upanishad is communicating this knowledge, is expounding or unfolding the knowledge of the self through a prakriya. All the Upanishads employ some or the other prakriya. Prakriya is nothing but a method. It is a model by which that which is indescribable, that which cannot be the object of words, is in some way communicated by Lakshyartha. And here, this prakriya that Upanishad is employed is that Atma has four quarters. By showing Atma having quarters, see, this prakriya shows that Adhyaropa is being done. Atma is shown as having quarters. But ultimately, this Adhyaropa will be negated. As they say, Adhyaropa apavadabhyam nishprapancham prapanchyate. It is by the method of Adhyaropa and then by apavada, that is negation, that which is nishprapancha, that which is beyond any kind of attributes or qualities, will be expounded. So this is the prakriya. And Adhyaropa is already done by us. We look upon ourselves as limited, as going through different experiences, different states of experiences, and Shruti begins from that. That is the style. As it were, it validates our Adhyaropa and then very systematically it will negate all that. This is the style. So here, Atma is shown as Chatushpada. Now, the first question that may arise in our mind is as to what is the meaning of this pada? Does it mean a foot? Then Bhashyakara says, Adi Shankaracharya ji says that this pada doesn't here mean a foot, but it means karshar panavat na gohu iva iti, which means it is by the word pada, what is meant is not a foot, just as we say that a cow has 4 foot, and each of the foot are different. Each of the feet of the cow are different from each other. They are distinct. In that manner, Atma doesn't have 4 quarters. But what it means is that, doesn't mean foot, but what it means is that quarters. Just as a rupee or a dollar has 4 quarters. Actually, rupee or a dollar is what it is. It is one thing. But we imagine 4 parts in it to arrive at the rupee. It is our imagination. In reality, rupee or a dollar is what it is. But to understand, we imagine 4 parts in it. Similarly, in some such manner, Shruti, this Upanishad shows Atma as having 4 parts. And to be precise, the reason why it does is so that we can then merge one into another and arrive at the 4th one. Bhashyakara writes here, Trayanam Vishwadinam Purva Pravilapanena Turiyasya Pratipattihi. So here Pada, all the 3 Padas are Pada, which means it is used in the Karana Vyutpatti, which means they are the means to enable us to know the end. So Pada, for the 3 states of experience, first Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, are the padas in the sense of Karana Vyutpatti, Padyate Anena iti padaha, that by which we will know. What we will know? The 4th one, the Turiya. So that for that the pada means Padyate Gamyate iti padaha. So that is Karma Vyutpatti. So this is just a point that I wanted to make. So thus, this 3 quarters will become the means to arrive at the 4th one. And that Shruti Upanishad deliberately calls them Pada so that by merging one into another, it will enable us to arrive at the 4th one. So these are the 4 Padas. So let us begin with the first one. Katham Chatushpadatvam, which are these 4? The first one is the waker. See, now Upanishad compartmentalizes our experiences of life into 3 states. So now it goes on to talk about each of these 3. Generally, we look upon life as having its expression only in the waking state. But Upanishad here takes all the entire range of experiences that we go through, and that is how enables us to understand life, and through that it will try to communicate about the 4th one. The 4th one, which is the reality. So Shruti now talks about the very first one, and that is Jagrat. So in the verse number 3, the first state that is expounded by Shruti is Jagrat Avastha. Upanishad says Jagarita Sthanaha Bahishpragnaha. First talks about the waking state. Let me tell you, Atma or the self does not have states. And yet, it is said that Atma is going through the first state, waking, dream state, and dream and this deep sleep state. But what is meant is that the states belong to the mind. But due to ignorance, we are identified with the mind. We are identified with the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body. And that is why, even though it is the states belong to the mind, it is said as if consciousness or the self is getting this name that it is having the Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti Avastha. So, having made that clear, because the mind cannot go through the states, cannot experience anything without consciousness. And in reality, consciousness is asangaha. But still, because of ignorance, it gets identified. And the very first state is that in which our entire personality gets fullest expression. And that is Jagrat Avastha. Jagrat, it is the Jagarita Sthana, which means that it is the where the waking state is the sphere of our activity. And here it is called Bahishprajnah. Self is called Bahishprajnah, which means that in this state, the consciousness is directed towards the world outside. Now again, with respect to the self, with respect to consciousness, we cannot say that it is directed outside or inside. But again, as I said, in the waking state, the self, due to ignorance, gets identified with the gross body as well as the subtle body, and always the causal body is always there. So in the waking state, this identification with the causal body is always there in all the three states, but in the waking state, there is identification primarily with the gross body and the subtle body. And when Indriyehi arthopalaptihi jagaritam, the Jagrat Avastha is that when consciousness is identified with the mind as well as the sense objects and then contacts the world outside. So when the self, through the sense organs, comes in contact with the sense objects, this particular state is known as Jagrat. So see, what is Jagrat is, what is Jagrat? It is that wherein the self, through the sense organs and mind, first with the mind, and then through sense organs, contacts the world outside. As far as the self or the consciousness is concerned, there is nothing inside and outside. But due to ignorance, it thinks that it is confined only to a particular upadhi. And because of the identification, it thinks it is only this much. Plus that it is he's needy. Ignorance has given rise to so many desires, and he seeks the fulfillment of those desires in the world outside. Even Kaivalya Upanishad, which also belongs to Atharva Veda, also talks about Jagrat Avastha, all the three avasthas, and there it also says, Sa eva maya parimohitatma striyanna panadi vichitra bhogaihi sa Jagrat paritrupti meti. Here in the Jagrat Avastha, due to Maya, which means due to ignorance, he looks upon himself as inadequate, incomplete, and always seeking satisfaction, always seeking happiness, always looking at the world outside to fulfill his needs. And therefore, in the Jagrat Avastha, the field of, he has the whole creation, whole manifest creation as his sphere of activity. And his focus is centered outside at the objects, different objects, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. And he seeks to fulfill himself through different objects in this state. And for that, he has been given the wherewithal. What is that? So the another adjective for this Jagrat, for this waker, is that he has saptangaha ekona vimshati mukhaha. He has 7 mouths. This is the adjective for this waker. Saptangaha. He has 7 mouths. which are the seven mouths, seven limbs. Which are the seven limbs? So then the seven limbs, now we have to pay attention. Shruti in this state, while describing the Jagrat Avastha, the waker began with the individual. But now, while talking about this waker, this individual, it covers the entire totality. And that is also done deliberately. So it's when it says that this waker has seven limbs, the seven limbs are, let me show you, which are the seven limbs. See, heaven is the head. The Shruti here describes, Bhashyakara writes that heaven is the head, sun are the eyes, prana is the breath free, the space is the intermediate body, then water or the oceans is the bladder, and the earth, the feet, and fire is the mouth. These are the seven mouths, seven limbs that this waker possesses. Now this fire and heaven and ocean, etc., all this is outside. All this is nothing but the cosmic person. So here, Shruti, while talking about this individual waker, includes the cosmic person in that. And that is also done with a purpose, to obviate any kind of differences that may exist in our mind about myself being only an individual. So it wants to, because earlier also it has already been pointed out that everything is nothing but Brahman. That equation has already been made, and that Brahman is Atma. So Atma cannot be confined to the body. When Shruti uses the word Atma, it includes the entire entire creation into it. And just as this individual has the waking state, similarly, the cosmic at the samashti level also, at the level of the totality also, there is the waking state. And the consciousness identified with that is called Virat, or here the name for that is given Vaishwanara. This word Vaishwanara cannot apply to individual waker. But in spite of that, Upanishad uses this word while describing the individual waker to show not that it doesn't know what it is doing, and it doesn't mean that Shruti does not know what it is doing. It very well knows and deliberately makes the use of this word Vaishwanara to show that it is nothing but cosmic person. So the totality is also included to show that in essence, there is just oneness. There is no such difference between individual and the total. In reality, they are one. The differences appear only when we look upon this boundary, when we look upon ourselves as confined to this one upadhi. But if we give up that, then the entire creation, the entire cosmos is my own body. So it is shown that this waker has 7 limbs and also 19 mouths. Ekona vimshati mukhaha. Ekona vimshati means 19. Mukhaha. Mukhaha is that by which you consume. We consume things with our mouth. What is this waker consuming with 19 mouths? Which are these 19 mouths? 5 pranas, and 4 antakarana. Antakarana, the 4 different vrittis of antakarana, which means manaha, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara. So this 4. So 5 plus 5 plus 5, 15, plus this 4 is equal to 19. So these are the 19 mouths by which this waker consumes the external world. And what does he consume? The gross objects. And that is why he is called Sthula Book Vaishwanaraha. His Sthula Book. Sthula Book means he consumes the gross things, gross objects. That is why he gets the name Sthula Book. And this is the Pratamaha Pada. This is the first quarter. First level of, first sphere of our experience. And that is the waking state. Then Shruti goes on to the second state, and that is Swapna, the dream. Now see, as I pointed out, Upanishad doesn't confine the experiences that we go through merely to waking state. It also includes the dream state as well as the deep sleep state, because these also are the experiences that we go through and we have to learn from them. And that is why Shruti says in the while talking about the second state, it says Swapna Sthanaha Antah Prajnaha. Now the sphere of activity for this dreamer is Swapna. Swapna is the sphere of activity, which means now the realm of experience is the dream. And what about his consciousness? Where is that focused? It is Antah Prajnaha. It is directed inwards. Again, here I would like to clarify that there is no externality and internality as far as the consciousness is concerned. But again, because of ignorance, it is identified with the mind, and that is why it is said that mind is focused inside. Now let me tell you that Swapna, what is this Swapna? Swapna Sthana, Bhashikara says, Jagrat Prajna Aneka Sadhana Bahihi Vishaya Avabhasamanaha. See what happens that when we go through the experiences of the waking state, there are certain experiences, certain things which leave a deep imprint on our mind. They leave a deep impression. Some guilt, some hurt, some jealousy, some of these things, some anger, some of these things are there in the mind due to the experience of the waking state. Say, for instance, somebody insulted me in the waking state. My boss insulted me. There I could not reply. Why? Because he happens to be my boss, and if I say anything, then I'll be fired. So I keep quiet. But that leftover of that experience remains in the mind, and that is very strong. So these impressions or the vasanas are nothing but the tendencies or the subtle level of the thoughts which are there in the mind. They express themselves in the dream state. In the dream state, these strong impressions of the Jagrat manifest themselves in the dream state. Now here, it is called Antah Prajnaha, which means his mind, he is totally identified with the mind. The outside world is not there. But these impressions are so powerful that they create a world of its own. Kaivalya also says, Sa eva jivaha swamayaya kalpita loke. He, in the dream state also, he goes through the same kind of experiences, same sukha and dukkha as he underwent in the waking state. But the difference here is that all these things, all the objects, the subject as well as the object, everything is nothing but the play of the mind. Therefore, Bhashyakara here quotes, Swapne Mahimanam Atraisha Devaha Swapne Mahimanam Anubhavati. He experiences the mind experiences its own glory in the dream state. Brihadaranyaka says, Asya lokasya sarvavatah matram apadaya. Some impression is taken from the waking experience, and then that itself gets manifest in the dream state. But again, here also, he has 7 limbs and 19 mouths. And this is purely a world created by the mind. And what is the name that he gets in this state? He is called Taijasaha, the luminous one. Why luminous one? He is called Taijasaha. Because it is because of the luminosity of the mind that this world is created. Where did the mind get its luminosity from? From nothing but consciousness. It is the shine or the consciousness which is identified with the mind. Consciousness is getting reflected in the mind. Mind is inert. Mind is jadam. It cannot do anything. But because consciousness gets reflected in the mind in turn becomes conscious because of the Chidabhasa, and then in the borrowed light or the borrowed consciousness, the mind manifests its own world based on the vasanas it has from the Jagrat Avastha. And it creates its own world and experiences what kind of objects. In the waking state, he was experiencing the gross objects. And now in the dream state, he is experiencing the subtle objects. There, the mind was required and sense organs were also required to contact the objects outside. But here, the mind itself is enough. And the subtle objects which are created by the mind, it is that which he experiences. That is why it is called Pravivikta Bhuk. Pravivikta Bhuk means he is the enjoyer, or he enjoys the subtle objects which are there created by the mind in the dream state. Then, and this is the Dvitiyaha Pada. This is the second level of experience, the second state of our experience, and that is the dream state. And now, having experienced that, the self is tired, and then it quickly or slowly passes on to the deep sleep state. And that is called Sushupti, deep sleep state. But here we have to make a note that Upanishad now describes this Sushupti with great care. Actually, according to the trend, Shruti should have said, just as while talking about the waking state, it said, Jagarita Sthanaha Bahishprajnaha. While talking about the dream state, Upanishad said, Swapna Sthanaha Antaf Prajnaha Taijasa. Swapna Sthana, Jagarita Sthana. Similarly, carrying on the same trend, Upanishad could have said, Sushupta Sthanaha, but no. In a very peculiar manner and brilliantly, Shruti talks about this deep sleep state. What does it say? See, the mantra talking about the Sushupti says, Yatra Suptaha na kanchana kamam kamayate na kanchana swapnam pashyati tat Sushuptam. Which means that, see, the waking state is also due to ignorance. The dream state is also due to ignorance. It is ignorance. It is in ignorance that he goes through waking state. It is in ignorance that he goes through dream state. So that ignorance is common to all the three. So had Upanishad directly said that in the deep sleep state, he is ignorant, sleeping in the dream or a deep sleep state, then there could have been a question that even in the waking state, this person is going through the sleep of ignorance. The waking state also is based upon ignorance. Even the dream state is based upon ignorance. The only difference between the waking and the dream state is that in waking state, he is identified with the mind plus sense organs and context the world outside. Ignorance is there also. In the dream state also, the ignorance is very much present. But the difference is that he's identified only with one part of the mind. Similarly, in the deep sleep state also, ignorance is there. So this ignorance means the sleep in the form of ajnana. Ajnana rupa nidra. Understand this very well. Ajnana rupa nidra is common to all the three. So had Upanishad simply said that in the Sushupti also, in Sushupti, he is totally immersed in ignorance. Then there could have been questions that even in Jagrat and Swapna also the sleep is there. To remove that kind of question or confusion rather, Upanishad says deep sleep state is that in which this person na kanchana kamam kamayate. He does not desire any object, which means there is no object outside. He does not desire any object. Thereby, the waking part is removed. Deep sleep is that wherein he doesn't go through any swapna. Yatra suptaha na kanchana kamam kamayate. In the deep sleep state, Bhashikara writes that darshana adarshana vrityoho tattva aprabodha lakshanasya swapasya. Tattva aprabodha. The ignorance of the truth is common in all the three states. So deep sleep is that in which he doesn't see any objects, desire any object, as well as doesn't see any dream. And that is the deep sleep state. What happens here? It is here that Shushupta sthanaha eki bhutaha, in deep sleep state, this Atma withdraws the entire personality. It gets withdrawn into ignorance. All the sense organs of action, all the sense organs of knowledge, as well as the mind, along with Chitta, Mana, Buddhi, Ahankara, everything is withdrawn. Everything is merged in this ignorance. And so here there is no ego. So what exists now is nothing but ignorance. Everything is as it were got merged into this ignorance. So it is said eki bhutaha. It is totally merged into this. And then further, the deep sleep state is described as prajnana ganaha. Prajnana gana. It is nothing in this state is nothing but the mass of consciousness. And he is going through the experience of Ananda. He is called Ananda Maya. Now this Mayat doesn't mean that he knows that he is of the nature of happiness. No, Mayat here means that he is full with happiness. he is nothing but happiness. The only difference is that he's not aware of it. He goes through the experience of happiness, but because the entire state is covered by ignorance, the curtain of ignorance being there, he does not know, but what remains there is nothing but happiness. This happiness is more of a relief. See, in the waking state, he went through all the experiences of happiness and unhappiness and jealousy and anger and everything. The same thing continued in the dream state. So in the waking in the dream state, he was carrying the load of ego. And ego always needs to assert itself, to prove itself, to show that it is something. So the big burden is there in those two states. But here, since all of that is merged, not merged because of knowledge, this is what Ishvara has done. This has happened due to nature. It is Ishvara's blessing that this has happened. Had Shushupti not been there, you can imagine what would have happened. We would have gone all crazy. In the waking state, we go through a lot of stress. Some happiness is there in between. But majority is nothing but stress and struggle, lot of misery. Same thing continues in dream state. Dream state is nothing, not much. The nature of the dream state and what we go through in that is not much different from what we go through in the waking state. But here, by the grace of God, what happens? Everything gets merged. The ego is no more there. Everything is withdrawn. The body is made as it were unconscious. And he goes into the deep sleep. What is there is nothing but the self which is covered by ignorance. Let me tell you, this is not much different from samadhi. Only difference is there also the ego is not there. Chitta vrittis are not there. But he knows I am consciousness. In deep sleep state also, ego is not there. The burden is not there. What obtains there is nothing but the self. But because of the tamas, because of the curtain of ignorance, of that avarana, he doesn't know. So, what happens naturally in deep sleep state by the grace of God has to happen by our effort, by knowing the nature of the self. And then when we are in samadhi and when we are doing dhyanam, we should know that I am Atma. And there, nothing but Atma. No projection, no ego. In deep sleep state, it happened by nature. But that has to happen with the knowledge. This was just by the way. But this is what happens in the deep sleep state. And then here, what does he enjoy? He enjoys Ananda book. He is the enjoyer of happiness. He enjoys that happiness. Only thing he doesn't know. But when he wakes up, he remembers, I had a very good sleep. Eshasya parama anandaha parama gatihi. And it is also described as the deep sleep. The sushupti is also described as cheto mukha. This deep sleeper is also called cheto mukha. Cheto mukha means he is the gateway to both the states, the waking as well as the dream. It is from here that he will either go to dream state or to the waking state. So deep sleep state becomes, as it were, the gateway, the mouthpiece from where he passes to other states. And this is prajnaha, trutiyaha, padaha. This is the third state. This is the third, means the deep sleep state. Here he is identified with nothing but ignorance. In the waking state, he was identified with the gross body, as well as the subtle body, as well as the causal body, which means ignorance. In the dream state, He was identified with the causal body as well as the mind, not the gross body. In the deep sleep state, he is identified with only the causal body, that is ignorance. But since projection is not there, ego being absent, mind being absent, he enjoys or goes through the experience of Ananda. This is the third water. Now comes the fourth one. Now, having talked about these three states, Shruti, wait. Chaturtah padah krama praptah vaktavyah. Having talked about this three, Shruti could have now said that this is the fourth one. But Shruti doesn't describe the fourth one in that manner. Shruti describes the fourth one in a different manner. It is in the language of negation, in the language of neti, apavada, that Shruti now proceeds to talk about the fourth one. Because, as I said, that this is the prakriya. First, the adhyaropa of the three, and now the apavada will go. Apavada will be done. Let me tell you. Let me give you an example. That there is an actor who plays the role of a beggar in one in the drama. In the first part of the drama, he plays the role of an actor or a role of a beggar. Then, in the second part of the drama, he plays the role of a minister. Then, in the third part of the drama, he plays the role of a king. But what is he? Is he the beggar, or is he the minister, or is he the king? He is none of them. Even though he is in all the three, the actor is, we can say that he is in and through all the three and yet beyond them. The roles, that is the beggar, the minister, as well as the king, are in the actor, but actor is not in them. Matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu avastitah. So actor, beggar is actor, minister is actor, king is actor, but actor, what is his identity? What is his reality? What is his truth? In the green room or in his life, in reality, he is the actor, not the beggar, the king, or the minister. They are just the roles that he plays, the roles that he goes through. In reality, so when we want to describe the actor, what do we have to say? We have to say he is not the beggar, not the minister, not the king. But here, see, in the example, we can see the actor. So it is easy to talk about him, that he is such and such actor. But in case of Atma, the self, we cannot talk about the self and show that it is this, such and such. The self being what it is, there is no other way of talking about it other than the prakriya of negation, neti. And that is why Brihadaranyaka Upanishad very beautifully says that other than this neti, neti means negation, not this, not this, not this, not this. As Bhashyakara in Nirvana Shatkam also does that. In each of the mantras, he first negates Mano, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chittani, Naham. nacha shrotra jihve, nacha grana netre, nacha vyoma bhumit. In the first three lines of the shlokas, he does the negation. And then he says Chidananda Rupaha Shivuham Shivuham. But Chit Ananda Rupa Shivaha cannot be seen. So it is only by negating these three, what remains is nothing but the self. So, but here the questions arise that so far you have been talking about the self and you describe the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. First one is Jagrat, second one is Swapna, third one is Sushupti. In the same manner, now proceed to talk about the fourth one. But that is not possible. When it comes to this fourth, the same trend is not applicable. Now the style changes because in reality, it is not fourth. In fact, this number fourth is Maya Sankhya Turiyam. In the Mangalacharanam of this Upanishad, Bhashyakara says Maya Sankhya Turiyam. This number fourth, which we have given, is the number given by Maya. It is by Maya that Atma gets this number fourth one. In reality, it is just one. One without the consideration of second. One without the thought of the second. See, one also we say with reference to second one. But this is one without reference of the second. It is just one. So, now while talking about the fourth one, Shruti employs this method of negation. So it says, Nantaf Pragnam, na Bahish Pragnam. This is how now it talks about the fourth one. What does it say? Nantaf Pragnam, na Bahish Pragnam, na Ubayataf Pragnam, na Pragnana Ghanam, na Pragnam, na Pragnam. It says this fourth one is not Antaf Pragnam, which means it is not dreamer. Dreamer was one whose focus was inside. Consciousness was directed inside. This one is not dreamer. Na Bahish Pragnam. By Bahish Pragnam, by negating Bahish Pragnam, what is negated is the waker is negated. Then na Ubayataf Pragnam. Sometimes, we are in the intermediate state. We go through certain states. There are times when we are not fully awake, as well as not fully sleeping also. In between state. This is not dream. This is different from dream. Sometimes we say, is daydreaming kind of thing. So that is Ubayataf Pragnam. Neither waking nor dreaming. Atma, the fourth one is not even that. Na Ubayataf Pragnam. Na Pragnana Ghanam. It is not the deep sleep state also, where there is no, where the ego and everything is totally sleeping, which means it is not the deep sleep state also, deep sleeper also. Na Pragnam. Na Pragnam means it is not Sarvagnya also, not omniscient also at that time. Means it is not, the fourth one is not that also. Na Apragnam. Now, Prajna means doesn't mean that it doesn't know anything, totally unconscious. No, it is not that also. Then what? Then again continues with the process of negation. What is it? Describes in the very peculiar manner. Now, all this is by Lakshyata. In the implied manner, Shruti talks about the fourth one. Just as in Upanishads we find, while talking about Atma or the reality, it says Adrishtam, Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam in Mundak, in Brihadaranyaka, Astulam, Arhasvam, Adirgham. Similarly here, employs the same method. Atma is Adrishtam, Avyavaharyam, Agrahyam. Adrishtam means not available for perception. Avyavaharyam, not available for transaction. Agrahyam cannot be grasped. Alakshanam cannot be indicated. Achintyam cannot be visualized. Avyabadeshyam cannot be described by words. Ekatma pratyaya saram. Now it speaks in the positive manner. What is it? Ekatma pratyaya. It is just one self. And what? Prapanchopashamam. It is there, it is that where all the prapancha, where everything made of 5, which means this concrete creation made of name and form is absent over there, has merged over there. Prapanchopashamam. It is Shantam, Shivam, spacious, and Advaita. And just one. Then Shruti is Chaturtham Manyante. It is thought to be the fourth. In reality, not fourth, but just one. Sa Atma, Sa Vigneya. This is the Atma, and this must be known. See, then why do you describe in such a manner? It is not this. Supposing I want to indicate an object, and if I say it is not the glass, it is not the pen, it is not the watch, it is not a book, it is not the table, but then tell us what is it? What is the point in saying it is not this, not this, not this? Why don't you say it is this, like this, and describe about it? Had it been available for that kind of description, Shruti would have done it. But as I said, Atma being beyond, Atma has no jati. If there is an object which has some jati, some peculiarity, if it is just as cow has the jati of cowness and jati is the cow is the vishesha, then Atma could have been described that way. Had it some gunas, some attributes, then we could have described that. Had Atma some kriya in it, just as the cook cooks, the driver drives the car, some kriya. Had Atma been doing some kriya, then it could have been explained or described that way. But no jati, no kriya, no guna, no sambandha. It is not related to anyone. There is no sambandha at all with anything. There can be sambandha between two similar things. Things belonging to the same class. See, this pen is there. If I want to tie it with something, then it is possible. But Atma is not available for that kind of sambandha because nirguna, nirakara, niravayava, nishkala. So no sambandha beyond all kinds of relations. No rudhi. There are certain words which we use for certain things. That is also not possible. Since the Atma is like this, it is not available for words. It cannot be seen, so perception doesn't work. Otherwise, if you see a thing, then it can be described. There are times when we don't see a thing, but we infer. Just as we don't see the fire, but we see the smoke. So from the smoke which we see, we infer the fire. Why? Because sometime we have seen the fire and the smoke together. So today when we don't see the fire, from the smoke, we infer the presence of the fire. Had Atma been available for this kind of anumana, inference, then also it could be described. So pratyaksha doesn't work, anumana doesn't work, upamana. If there was something like Atma, then I would have described it as this animal. I don't know the name of this animal, but I say it is like a cow. Had Atma been like something, then it could have been available for Upamana. But Atma is, there is nothing like Atma, nothing other than Atma. So how to say? So Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Arthapati, Prism, nothing, none of these Pramanas, sources of knowledge work. It is not available for words because it is not available for mind also. Therefore, Shruti says it is what? When you negate all this, yeah, but the question can arise when you talk in this manner, maybe it is shunya, maybe it is void. It is not void also, because the projections, Pashikara very beautifully says that mithya vikalpasya nirnimittatva anupapattehe. All the vikalpas, all the projections, waking, dream, deep sleep state, all of them are not possible without the substratum. Just as the beggar, the minister, the king cannot be without the actor being there. Actor is not those three, but still those three cannot be without the actor. Or just as the object which is lying before me is the rope, but because of the semi-darkness, I cannot see it properly. I look upon it, I think it to be snake, or somebody may take it to be garland. Third one may take it to be the crack in the ground. But all these projections cannot be without the thing being there. You cannot project something unless the platform, unless the adhisthana, unless the rope is, the snake, etc. cannot be projected. Snake is not right. Snake is not the reality, but something is very much there. What is taken wrongly. What is the wrong part is to be negated. And when you negate that, when you negate the snake, when you negate the garland, rope is very much there. You don't have to create the rope. You just have to negate the snake, negate the garland. And when you do that, what remains is very much there. We don't have to create. And in case of Atma, having negated all these attributes, all these incidental aspects, Jagrat is incidental, dream is incidental, deep sleep is incidental. But what is essential, what is inherent, is nothing but the self. We don't have to create it. Plus, it is Swaprakasha. It is Swayam Jyoti, self-shining, self-effulgent. So it shines on its own. Only thing that needs to be done is to negate. Having negated, Atma is very much there. The fourth one, the Turiya, not fourth, but the real one. Fourth is name given because of the projection, because of the 1, 2, and 3, which are projected. When they are negated, what remains is nothing but the self, which is bereft of all the projections. Prapanchopashamam. Everything is negated. What remains is silence. What remains is consciousness. What remains is existence. Existence which shines and which is Ananda. What remains is this Atma, which is Asti, Bhati, Priya. You don't have to create it. So, these three were projected. And there was no, see, we confuse the projection with the reality, the incidental with the essential. There is confusion of this. And every moment, when I take myself to be waker, Atma is very much there. When I take myself to be dreamer, the fourth one, the Atma is very much there. When I take myself to be the deep sleeper, also Atma is very much there. But hidden behind this complexes or the notions that I am the waker, I am the dreamer, I am the deep sleeper. We just have to remove these notions. We don't have to create the Atma. Atma is very much there. Remove the notions with the help of the teaching. And that is exactly what Shruti is doing. Nantaf prajnam, na bahish prajnam, na prajnanaghan. Then what? Prapanchopashamam, Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. That is the reality. So, this reality comes along with these projections. These projections, waking, dream, and deep sleep state. We negate it. Shruti helps us do that. And then what remains is the self. Shunyata is not there. Shunyavadis claim or propound the theory that shunyata or void is the reality. That shunyata cannot be the reality. Are you shunya? No. We always experience ourselves as existent. I am, I am, I am. Atma is constantly saying or expressing itself as existence, existence, existence. Whatever is projected upon that. And what is the projection? Projection is that which doesn't remain. I'm not, if Jagrat were reality about me, it would not go. But moment I dream, go into the dream state, Jagrat goes. Jagrat has no entry into the dream, and dream has no entry into the deep sleep state. Jagrat and dream, none of them have entry into the deep sleep state. So these three states are mutually exclusive. And what negates the other one, what is Bada Yogya, is not reality. Atma is not, even when Jagrat is, Atma is. Even when dream is, Atma is. Even when deep sleep state is, Atma is. It is abaditam, ever present. Whereas those three come and go, come and go. Atma remains the same. So to arrive at this essential, we have to negate what is incident. In this manner, Mandukya Upanishad talks about the self, gives us the knowledge of the self by this prakriya of the three avasthas. I will have to conclude my talk here. We can go on and on, but we have to stop at some time. So I will stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanta Shanta Shanti. Namaste.
Fantastic. That was a brilliant exposition starting from Sarvami Etat Brahmaya Matma Brahma Soyam Atma Chadushpad to Sa Atma Savidneha. 7 most difficult mantras in the entire Advaita chain of thought. Fantastic. I'm really grateful. Sashtanga Dandavat to you on behalf of all the viewers. I'm waiting for the question, but I don't think there is any question as such. But let us wait for a couple of minutes. Let us see whether anybody can raise any question on this. But it was fantastic. You covered every aspect of it. You covered every aspect. Extremely lucid way. Very good exposition. Very good exposition.
This Upanishad requires a lot of lot of background also for people to grasp the meaning.
Swaminiji, I have a question. The Mandukya Upanishad refers to that many openings in the body. I think 14 or something, if I'm not mistaken. What does it refer to? What are these openings that it makes refer to?
I didn't understand, Nitinji. What did you say?
The Mandukya Upanishad, it refers to the self as a body as having many openings. I think it. What are the openings that it makes refers to?
It talks about this 7 limbs and 19 mounts. With
Yes.
the waking state and the dream state. Which are the 14 ones?
Yeah, sorry, 19 months. The 19 mouths.
19 mouths.
Yeah.
19 mouths are this, five organs of knowledge. That is eyes, ears, etc. 5 organs of knowledge, that is of perception, plus 5 organs of actions, 10, plus 5 pranas, prana, apana, vana, vyana, udana, samana, plus 4 different vrittis of the mind. The Antakarana is divided into 4 vrittis, depending upon the kind of thought that is there. Chitta, manaha, ahankara, and buddhi. So 5 plus 5 plus 5, 15, plus this 4. This is adds up to 90. So these are the 19 mouths. This mouth means this is the these are the mouths by which we consume the world outside. See, when we are thinking, then we look upon an object and we think about it. So as it were, it is with this chitta or manaha that we contact the world outside. So it is with reference to this 19 that Shruti talks about it as mouths, through which we consume the world outside. That, like suppose the food we take, that is also digested by the Pancha Prana. We come in contact with the world outside with our organs of knowledge, organs of action. If there is an object which I want, then I will try to grasp it. All this is done with this 19 things. That is why it is called Mukha. Ekona Vimshati Mukha, 19.
Thank you, Swamini ji. Yeah.
One question is there. Can we meditate on the presence of Atma?
Sorry?
Can we meditate on the presence of Atma?
Very much. Atma is always there. Only thing we need to, actually, as I said, just as I look upon myself as Ahankara today, I look upon myself as so and so. I don't have to, I'm so deeply ingrained in the thinking that I'm Ahankara, that it has become Sahaja. I don't have to remind myself, even at the middle of night also, if you wake me up and ask me, who are you? I will say, I'm so and so. To that extent, that I'm the self, Atma, that should become Sahaja. For that, we have to meditate. Meditate means we don't have to see or create Atma, but remind ourselves that I am not the body, but Sat Chit Ananda. That is also there, always there, in whatever experiences we go through. Even now when I'm talking, Atma is there. It is because of the presence of the self that I'm able to talk. It is because of the presence of Atma, the self, that ears are hearing. That is why Kenopanishad is Shrotrasya Shrotra. Manasaha Mana, it is the mind of the mind, eye of the eye, ear of the ear, which means that Atma is always there. It is not that it gets created at a certain time. It is always, only thing we have to make note of it. Even when we don't make note of it, not that it is not there. I'm very much there. It is because of the Atma that the body functions, the mind functions, the creation and the things in that do their respective functions. But the presence is always there. And if we silently pay attention, then we'll come to know that even when these words are being spoken, the consciousness is there. I don't have to visualize it. I have to know it as myself. I am that. And that I is not the body, not the speech, not the mind, not the ego, but consciousness, the Turiya. I hope I'm making myself clear.
Yeah. Can an inanimate object have consciousness, or does it have consciousness?
Very much. Even inanimate objects, only the difference between animate and inanimate object is that one doesn't reflect consciousness. The jada, that which we call inanimate, and I'm animate. I'm here, the consciousness is getting expressed. This is called achetana or jada, and this is called chetana. The difference is that here the subtle body is there. Subtle body means mind. Wherever the mind is, the consciousness will get reflected. Here, consciousness is very much there. There is not a single place, time, or space where consciousness is not. The entire creation is within consciousness, but it will get reflected only where subtle body is. Let me give you an example. That sun is there in the sky, but where will it get reflected? It will not get reflected on a dark wall. Sun will get reflected only in water or a shining surface. Or just as my face will get reflected in a mirror, not in a dark surface. So I am there, but for my reflection, mirror is required. Similarly, consciousness is everywhere, but what we call jadam doesn't have that subtle body or the mind which can reflect consciousness. Whereas what we call chetana is that it has the subtle body which reflects consciousness. So there is difference between chaitanya and chetana. Chetana means wherever mind is, chaitanya will get reflected, and then we call that object chetana, element. And wherever that subtle body is absent, chaitanya or consciousness will not get reflected. So we call it jadam, and wherever it gets reflected, we call chetana. This is the only difference between jada and chetana. As far as chaitanya is concerned, consciousness is concerned, it is all pervasive. It is everywhere, whether in a mountain or in a wall or in a rock. Asti, bhati, priya. Even a rock is. Even a rock shines. And that rock is also of the nature of Ananda. But, so Atma is very much there. But only problem is, it doesn't have that subtle body to reflect the consciousness. Consciousness requires a medium to reflect. Just as a fan, when the fan moves, the wings are moving. But when can they move? When electricity passes through the motor or the tungsten filament, then it expresses through the three wings of the fan. Fan can move. Fan is like the gross body. The motor inside is like the subtle body. And electricity or the power is like the consciousness. Just as the power cannot express itself, it is very much there, but it won't express. It requires a medium. And which kind of medium? That which can take the power. So tungsten filament is that where the electricity can move on when contacted. Then from that, it goes on to the wings of the fan. Similarly, consciousness first gets reflected in the mind. Mind is such a instrument which catches the consciousness. So it gets, first mind catches the consciousness. And from then onwards, it passes through the different layers of the personality. And then it goes to the gross body. And that is how this gross body becomes conscious, appears as conscious. But in reality, there is no difference between this object and this body. Both are same. Only difference is here there is mind, the subtle body. And here there is no subtle body. So here, because of the presence of the subtle body, consciousness is able to reflect itself. Whereas here it doesn't. Did you get it?
Very clear, very clear, very clear. One more question, last question, which I will take because we are done with the time. So how can we relate waking state to the individual based in the description in the Upanishad?
Sorry, once again, repeat.
How can we relate the waking state to the individual based in the description in the Upanishad?
How can we relate the waking state?
Waking state to the individual based in the description in the Upanishad.
Yes, it is the individual, the self, which goes through the waking state. Waking state means, as I said, there the Atma or the self is identified with the mind as well as the subtle body. Mind as well as the gross body. So, there are sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, etc. All these organs of knowledge or perception are there. Consciousness in the waking state is that where consciousness through the mind and through the sense organs, that is eyes, ears, etc., goes out and contacts the gross objects. And that is how we go through different experiences in this waking state, which means we contact the world outside. There is a world outside full of objects, and we contact them through the mind and sense objects. This state where this happens is called Jagarita. And this is how the individual enjoys the world outside.
Thank you, Swamini ji. Thank you. My Sashtanga Pranam to you on my behalf as well as on the behalf of viewers. Sashtanga Dandavat. Thank you very much.
I also thank everyone, and particularly the Global Festival organized by Indica. So very thankful that we are getting this opportunity to talk about our scriptures and Adi Shankaracharya ji, Bhagavan Bhashyakara. It is a great opportunity, and this kind of occasions are very much necessary so that we become well versed, we come to know about our scriptures as well as our Acharyas. Thank you very much.
Viewers, please attend our next session at 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time. We are going to hear on why Shankara Vedanta is relevant in the modern days, modern India, modern world by Swami Satchidananda ji.